Let me say at the very start, you won't understand what I'm going to tell you this morning. You won't grasp it. You won't feel it. You won't be able to internally nod your head and say, yes, I understand that. However, you can start to do so this morning. It's quite profound and has far more to it than you can possibly imagine. Your present negative states, your fears and your inner divisions, and your hope that other people will like you and still be your friends, all these are standing in the way of you understanding what we're going to go into this morning. So there's a block there. However, how do you knock down a wall? You knock it down by starting to hammer away at it. So this is one or two small blows against that thick wall in our mind that we're going to go into this morning. Another wall is that you're not going to feel very deeply what you're going to hear, and it is quite necessary to feel it. To know something with a surface mind is not to understand it. It is to have an idea about it. To have an idea of what it's like to climb to the top of a mountain is not the same as actually being on that mountain. But imagination can persuade you, imagination being a form of thought, can persuade you that you're on top of the mountain, and so you can preach sermons and write books and live up to man-made moral codes and think that you're a good person, and you're not at all, because you can still hate. And I would dislike being around some of you when all this concealed hatred and rage in you gets loose. You will start this morning to put a new form of right rebellion into action. And the right rebellion starts as follows. Dear sir, dear madam, dear wife, dear husband, dear friend, dear society, I'm not going to explain myself to you anymore. All my life I have done this. I have protected myself. I've tried to live up to your moral standards, which are hypocritical. I've tried to be a faithful man, a faithful woman. I've tried to be loyal. I've tried to be good. I've tried to be decent. I've tried to do my part to make this a better world. And in doing this, I now sense in a small way that I've destroyed myself and destroyed you. I'm sorry. I'm not going to hurt you deliberately. I don't want to hurt you by saying I'm going to change myself. I'm going to start to think and feel and act and respond in a new way. But I know, dear friend, dear wife, dear husband, dear society, that when I begin to make this aim, this resolve, to cut myself free of the insanity, that it's going to scare you. It's going to make you feel insecure. It's going to make you cry. It's going to make you angry. It's going to make you uncertain as to what's going on. And for all my life, I have lived under a false moral code in which I have said, not knowing the damage it was doing, all right, it's not nice to hurt you, and so I will keep going down the false trail in order to keep you from crying. The time has come when I'm no longer going to do it, because I have seen a few things that have begun to set me free. One of them being, I have no responsibility whatever for you being scared or hostile when I say I'm going to learn what it really means to stand all alone. I used to think, because I had a false, phony moral code which society said was right, and society is always wrong. I had a false moral code that said it is wrong to disturb people. I'm not disturbing you at all. I want out of the mess. And if you get disturbed, by the way, you won't understand what I'm telling you, dear wife, dear husband, dear society. That is your responsibility, not mine. For the last time, you have made me feel guilty. For the last time, you have tried to trick me for your own egotism's sake, not for the sake of goodness at all. And you have said that it is right morally for me to conform to what you want from me, and I'm all through. I'm sorry. Not really sorry. I'm sorry that if you get hurt, but I'm not sorry for this new stand, the new stand that I have to take. So, dear wife, dear husband, dear friend, I will tell you a very brief story which will lead up to this. Ever since I was a young man, a young woman, I've been confused. I could be hurt by anybody. And I was the world's greatest actor and actress. And I was full of greed and ambition and trickery, because I thought this was the way I had to live. This is the way I had to get by in this world. And I must tell you that my father taught that to me. My mother taught it to me. My dear old gray-haired grandparents taught it to me. And when I was a kid, I thought it would be disrespectful to challenge the codes they were teaching me, but I see better now. Everyone taught me that you have to fight. So I lived this way for a long, long time, and every time I poked you, you poked me back, psychologically, maybe even physically, I don't know. And this was hell. And this went on for many, many years. And everything I tried made it worse, not better. I tried religion. I tried being a better person. And I read all kind of books. The books I read. Nothing happened. Everything was the same. Till finally, and heaven knows how, I came across, this is your biography and the biography of anyone who's found the way out, by the way. I don't know how, but I ran across a few basic principles that made me feel different than I'd ever felt in my life. I can't explain it, but I know that these ideas rang a bell, so to speak, in a part of me that I didn't even know existed. And I've been studying these ideas, and I've been going to group meetings on them, and I've been reading books, and I've been working on myself as these ideas urge, until I collected enough basic knowledge to see what I have to do next. And do you know something? It's really startling. It's startling. This vow of independence, dear friend, that I'm now making to you, I thought I'd made it 10 years ago. I thought I'd made it quite clear that I was going to stand all alone and not bow before you anymore, not be a gullible victim to your tears and to your angers and your subtle threats and your promises of reward. I thought I'd done that. To my great shock and surprise, I see that I'd done it that much, but I see how much farther I have to go. And one other thing that happened to me is that I not only know that I have to set myself free of you, which is the same as setting me free of myself, because I'm a slave to you only because I'm a slave to myself. I not only know it intellectually, but I feel it. I sense it. There's more than just the idea. I'm not being a quoter anymore. Do you know people who quote but don't live? All of us. All of us. That was me, dear sir or madam, for many, many years. So, to put it very simply but very directly, dear world, it's going to be very difficult for me, very hard, and believe me, I'm going to make a dozen stupid mistakes every single day. I'm going to ask myself, why did I do that stupid thing? But at least, at last, I'm not covering up my stupidity and my lies. Thank God. I'm having the courage to make my own mistakes. In other words, I am walking consciously down the path, so that when I make an error, I know it's one, because I'm not going to defend it anymore against myself, against my images, or against you. And I've had enough little experience walking this path to know that if I can see a blunder consciously, I can understand it and end it. Because I will know, for one thing, I will no longer identify with it. I will no longer think I'm stuck with being a hypocrite. If any of you are hypocrites, why do you identify yourself as a hypocrite? See it as a fact without identification. Hypocrisy being self-division. Thinking, for example, that you must get something from someone else, such as their approval. So I see, astonishingly, I have but one choice left in life. The only thing left to do, because I've tried everything else. I've tried going along with your parties, your drinking parties, your religious parties, which are the same thing, and drugged myself with what you call God and all that. There's only one thing left to do, which is for me to go forward without being afraid of all the new mistakes I will make, because I no longer have a moral code. That terrible moral code that kept me immoral, that kept me unconsciously hating you, resenting you, while saying I loved you and liked you. Not having 10 points of how I'm going to behave rightly today, I will be nice to everybody I meet, so you do it exteriorly, but resent them interiorly. No longer having a code to follow, how are you going to be a decent human being? How are you going to know how to be good? You become good by having no moral code at all, by having no ideas of what it means for you to be good. If you know what it means for you to be good as only an idea, or if I know it, then you and I are hypocrites and liars, and we're the causes of wars and all kind of heartache and grief in this world, because we're living from the surface morality instead of being what we know. There is only one good power in the whole universe, and it isn't this church or that church or that moral leader, political leader, religious leader, or good father or good mother. Why callest thou me good? Christ said. There's only one good power, which is God himself. So how do you become good? Essentially by going through all this rebellion. See, you understand you're all fawners. Do you understand that? No, you don't. If you knew it, you wouldn't continue to do it. So by going to the very end of things, what happens? You come to the end of yourself. You come to the end of your phony goodness, completely phony. Beautifully, you come to the end of all attempts to be good. Haven't you ever noticed what a strain it is to be decent? To talk nice to rude people? Haven't you noticed what a terrible strain it is? And you're afraid it's going to slip on you sometime? And instead of saying something nice when you're shouted at, you're going to shout back because you couldn't help it anymore? Because all this pressure of being good is built up? False goodness is a terrible pressure, isn't it? You know, you'd rather haul off and knock the guy down. But you can't do that. You'll go to jail, or he'll fire you. Connect all this, what we're talking about so far, with your relations with a man, the opposite sex, with a man or a woman in your life, and you'll see how you fawn. When my rebellion reaches an intensity to where I'm willing to leap off into this dark that we've talked about many times, so that I disappear as a good person, as a spiritual person, as a Christian, as a Buddhist, as a person who is concerned with others. When I come to the end of that, there will be goodness, and it won't be mine anymore. All this has to be seen very, very deeply, to the point where you are willing to act on it during the break of this meeting and after the meeting. So that you say, again, this time with more feeling, heaven help me, but I'm going to be what I really am. For the last time, dear sir, dear madam, dear society, for the last time you have tricked me into feeling guilty because I don't go along with your phony, false hypocrisy in what you call the right thing to do. When you show a small child on television crying because she's hungry in China or Africa or somewhere, I'm going to see very deeply into that trick that you're trying to play on me. And I'm not going to go for it anymore. Because if you were sane, that child would not be hungry and pathetic. You, sir or madam, have caused that child to be hungry and to be in pain. And you have tricked me for the last time. Do you understand what we're talking about this morning? Instead of feeling guilty, of feeling ashamed, when I feel it, I'm going to try to understand it instead of defend it. Or instead of saying it's not there. Do you see the difference in the procedure? Something goes wrong with your automobile. You don't feel guilty over it. You don't hate anyone over it. You say, I want to understand what it is so it can be corrected. You're very scientifically minded about that. We've got to be just as equally scientific about all these horrible, horrible things that are inside us. Now I'll tell you, if you want a good feeling, an authentic good feeling, you will get it when you go into this right kind of revolt that we're talking about. Do you know what you're revolting against? You're revolting against your own misery, against your own feeling at being the mercy of that power in society, or of that good-looking man or that attractive woman. You're revolting against being an inner slave, so that you can have 2 cents in your pocket, if that's the way it works, or $1 million, or be all alone, or have a dozen friends, and there's no difference at all. Because you're no longer depending on these exterior things to tell you who you are, to make you feel right, to make you feel secure. I will tell you again, we haven't brought up this subject for a long time, but I will tell you, and then I'll explain it to you. You're going to have to cry a whole lot more. Because you have no choice at this stage. Inwardly, you're going to have to cry. Men don't cry so much outside because they're supposed to be men. But that you cry just the same. And you ladies cry. You break down and cry. You're going to have to cry because you're going to have to see that that is the way you are. That is your state. Following that, you'll come to the point which was mentioned in the talks in Glendale, that you will simply stop crying, just drop it because it contributes to your sickness, to your egotism. Because it makes you miserable. You're miserable when you cry, but there's a certain part of you that loves to weep. And some of you may even be, you'll have to answer this for yourself, some of you may even be jealous when you see another person crying, because for the moment they are the center of attention. And you wish that you were the center of attention. And so you find some sorrow, what mean thing your husband did to you. But first you have to cry, because you're lying about your state, and you're suppressing it, and you're pretending you're strong. Aren't you glad that you're fully exposed in this group so that you cannot lie about it anymore? So that the process of healing can start where it has to start, with the idea that I am a slave to you and to society and to my own ideas. What a relief that is. I may have to lose every friend I have, so-called spiritual friends. I may even have to wander, as the prodigal son did, out in the farmlands, farmyard, or whatever it was. I am going to wander out there consciously, thank God, so I see what is going on. Instead of calling the farmyard my castle. You understand a right idea when you live the idea. When you are the idea, not just having it in the surface part of your mind or your intellect. Now I'll give you one such idea and let you judge as to whether you know it in your surface mind or whether you're actually living it or not. Now, the idea is this. Don't let any other human being or any organization tell you what is right for you. Now you say, well, that's a fine thought. I agree with it thoroughly. I'm asking you whether you are free from that man, from that woman, from that social group who has conned you, tricked you into believing that they know what is best and right for you. Think of the millions of statements that society makes in order to get you under their thumb, and you're playing the same game, by the way, or you wouldn't be conned by it, because you want your chance next to have someone underneath you with power, money, or whatever. Think of all the statements society makes. Think of them even as you're sitting here. This type of law is good for you. Marriage is good for you. On and on and on. How many do you accept as true simply because they were given to you? And because you have self-interest involved in it? You know, it's very, very easy to feel sorry for the people of some other nation when you're getting a salary of $50,000 a year in order to feel sorry for them. You understand? Do you understand what mechanical morality is? No, we won't go into that because we went into it earlier, or at least we touched on it. Who are you being dictated to by? Which isn't very good grammar, but I think you get the thought. Who is dictating to you, and you're consenting to it? Because it gives you what you call security, what you call friendship. Heaven help you when that friendship blows up, and heaven help the other person when he sees your face, your rage. You just don't see it at all when I tell you how much rage you have in you. Which is why I said earlier, sooner or later you're going to have to wander out into the farmyard as the prodigal son did and see your state as it is. You're not at all nice. You're not a nice person at all. You're horrible. You're terrible. Look what you've done to other people. So just look at what you've done to them all your life. I don't mean with your fist necessarily, or even with words, although you did plenty with that. Think of what your state has done to every person who comes in contact with you. Now that isn't very nice, is it? Is it nice to hurt other people? To lie to them? You don't have any choice but to be mean, be cruel, to be a liar, to be a trickster. You have no choice. This is what you are. You and I can change what we are. That part is fine. We can change what we are. But only until I see what I am and then cease to identify with it, which is another long story which we won't go into now. All right, let's discuss things. What would you like to talk about regarding what we've talked about up until now? Do you accept it that you're pretty mean? Do you accept that? No? Yes? You're pretty nice, are you? If you think you're nice, I feel very sorry for you because you won't come back to another meeting and you'll have to go back to your hell. I know this. You think you're nice? You're not nice at all. Yes?
In some of your tapes you said, don't apologize for anything.
Right.
All right. Now, say I've insulted someone very badly. I shouldn't apologize to this person?
Everything would depend on the precise circumstance. If I happen to jostle you in the hall, I would say, I'm sorry. That's one type of apology, which is fine. You're just saying, I'm sorry. So. What is your state after you insult someone? Guilt? Huh? What is your state after you hurt someone else? If you're going to operate from guilt, no matter what your reaction is, it's going to be wrong. If you could see as a fact that I said a hurtful thing to you, a stupid thing to you, that hurt your feelings or whatever, if I could see it at the moment I did it, I would then know how to react to you, what is the proper thing to say to you. And it might not be anything more than a different look on my face, which says I'm sorry, not a fawning, you understand? So that you understand that I have seen, we're communicating, so that you can see by the expression on my face or my attitude that I knew that I did a dumb thing. And by knowing I did the dumb thing, consciously I will not repeat it. If I go into guilt and say, I'm sorry for what I've done to you all these years, I'll do it again to somebody else, the next wife, the next husband. If you can summarize, if I can be in a conscious state, make a mistake consciously, in one sense that's impossible, you understand? Because when you're conscious, you don't make mistakes. But if I can catch myself immediately after hurting someone, insulting them, if I can catch myself right now, that makes a new state of mind. And that new state of mind will not make another mistake because it's broken the mechanicalness which the first mistake was based in. Consciousness is not mechanicalness. It does not repeat itself. This is our hope. This is our great salvation, that I can become conscious the second after I have made a stupid mistake, therefore breaking the freight train. Instead of letting it go again by having a false repentance, I'm sorry of how I treated you and you, I'm sorry, I'm still a hypocrite and I become a preacher and I lie to people and lead them astray because nothing internally has changed at all. You understand this? Okay. When you speak up loud and clear for the tape, will you please?
We dwell a little more on the idea of our estate. Like when you said, think what your estate has done for every person you have come in contact with. I sense something deep there, but I can't quite...
All right, okay. Everyone we meet, we hurt. Now you don't know, all right, now just a minute. Everyone we meet, we hurt. As long as we're in the state we are now. We don't know it. They don't know it because a number of things, one of them being we call hurt good. You and I will, me and this girl will have a nice relationship. We'll get married or just not get married. We'll have a good relationship with each other. This is a bargain that we've talked about before. I hurt you because I'm in a state of self-hurt. What is it? What do you mean by being... Is the mail through? Unconsciousness always hurts because in a state of unconscious relationship with you, I am trying to use you, whether I call it love and I call it marriage and I call it a beautiful romance, I'm still trying to use you to make me feel good. Make me feel secure, to get sex, to get companionship, to get someone to have dinner with, whatever. I'm using you. Well, what's the problem? I am hurting you. Now for a big leap. Listen to this. Only when I am conscious, only when I am living alively with the kingdom of heaven within, can I talk to you, meet you, without hurting you. Because my negativity is mechanical. It has to express itself. I can tell you a subtle lie, for example, because I'm asleep. Therefore, I automatically hurt you by not being a truly decent human being. It's very complex, but we'll go on just a little bit. Now, if you were to become a conscious human being who did not hurt other people, you go to the grocery store and say, here's $5 for a loaf of bread, which is what it's coming to. What happens between you and the man taking your money? Nothing. What's there? Nothing. No relationship. Here you are, a person who's worked hard on himself for 20 years. You found the light, so to speak. You found it. What? Nothing. So what good does it do to wake up? What does it do? You are free and you are the whole world as far as you are concerned. Which means you don't have to save anyone else. If they ask a question, you answer the question. But they're not going to ask. So, now, by being a conscious human being, you do not hurt others. That's goodness. You do not lie, you don't steal, you don't cheat, you don't enter into unconscious bargains which destroy both of you. You mean to tell me you want more goodness than that? Can you think of a higher state of goodness in which you do not hurt someone? You're at the grocery stand again. Bread is now $6 a loaf the next day. See, you react to this because you're in a state of fear. All right. The next day you go and you hand the loaf of bread. Let's say a year ago you were asleep. Yeah? And so you got so many problems. Oh, loaf of bread is going up, I see, Mr. Grocery Checker. And you blab to the poor man or woman who wishes you'd shut up so that he or she can check your bread and tomatoes and corn. You're so stupid, so asleep, you don't know that everything you do causes confusion. That person should be allowed to check your groceries and you keep your big mouth shut. A year later, you do not harm him by causing him confusion. Now, you expand that 1,000-fold and you'll see what we're talking about. Right? No? To be asleep is to hurt everyone you meet, without exception. When you are a coward, when you're afraid of somebody, you are hurting him. Do you understand that? When you're afraid of something, you are cruel enough to hurt that person, because you are causing him to have a false reaction of gleeful power over you. I made you cry. I made you buckle down to the rules of the office. I showed you who's boss. You have destroyed him, and you have no conscience. And you did it because you're asleep yourself. Larry, then Dick. Go ahead, Larry.
When I hear it said here in class, we're afraid of the news headlines along with other things. This morning we went to the donut shop. There's a newspaper stand outside. I see something, stock market teeters. We went there to have coffee and donuts. That was our purpose.
Right.
But when I got in there, I found myself in a state of aggravation, in a state of
Sure.
laugh, and I said, "Why, Larry?" I went back to the news headline that I saw 5 moments before, and I let those words affect my mood, but I wasn't going to blame Connie for bumping my knee to irritate me. It was because I mechanically put this silly, oops, there goes my money. Well, all right, I got enough money for coffee and donuts. That's what it's here for. But what I'm saying is these words, the words that are used, they stick.
They set you off.
They cause me to see
Yeah.
where I bring about what Dick said, my atmosphere and my mood, which I will radiate to others mechanically, if I won't see it.
That's good self-work, isn't it? He traced back the source of the irritation to the headlines and then back in himself, then saw it was a mechanical reaction, that he was a slave to a piece of paper. A slave to a piece of paper. How about irritability? When you're irritable to someone else, you mean to tell me you're moral toward them? Dick.
I was just going to comment, and so Larry more or less stated it. So our work then is to try to become constantly, as much as possible, aware of our states.
Sure.
And then
Yeah.
to
Well,
see
just as Larry said, because look, you can work with seeing the state. You can't work with it if you call it another name, if you give it a label. If you say that I'm hurting you for your own good, for example. The impossibility of talking with the average person about these things is incredible, right? Would you agree with that, those of you who have been here for a long time? So why are you going to do it? Don't. Save your breath. Are you smiling, Joan, or ready to speak?
All the years I talked it, I wasn't living it.
Right.
And hypocrisy is tremendous. I was a quoter that you talked about before.
A quarter. Yeah. One, Leland.
In other words, every move I make, an unconscious move, will be nothing because it'd be a wrong move. Whether I move this way or I move that way, it would be a wrong move, unconscious. Right?
Right. Go ahead. Or you. I'm angry, say. I am angry. Okay? Who has hurt me? All right. Who has hurt me? Anger is one thing. I'm angry, and I blast you. I blast you. So, being one thing, I cannot help but hurt you at the same time I hurt me. Vice versa. Hurt me at the same time I hurt you. You could be free of it if you were, but you're probably not. See, you could take it on the right place instead of taking it on your lower center, so to speak. Do you see how a beautiful out this is for us, as far as this new true goodness we're talking about? If I'm free from anger, if I don't blow up, what a wonderful friend I become to you. And the only friend. In silence for the entire meeting and learn many valuable things. We won't do it because we're learning in a different way this morning, but we could just sit here and watch everything that is going through us, watching our tension, perhaps discomfort at the curious situation of a group of people sitting here in a room not saying anything, and you'll watch a certain stiffness on your part, wondering, you want to look at the person next to you to see if he's as uncomfortable about it as you are. It would be a very valuable experience. And in certain situations you can do this when with other people, where you deliberately decline to talk or to join in the activity just in order to sit back and watch your own self reacting to the situation. But that is not what we're going to do this morning. It is a fact indeed that concentration is a great power. If I can put all my desire, all my being, all my feelings and thought and energy into one thought at a time, one at a time, one idea at a time, so that I can see it, explore it, think about it, work with it. And this is what we're going to do this morning, and it's a very practical work project for you. We're going to look into the idea of being defeated. Very valuable. When the world got up this morning, this Saturday morning, quite unconsciously, every hypnotized man or woman, which is the entire world practically, unconsciously ask themselves, how can I win this morning, today? And what can I win today? This is the dominating drive of humanity. How and what can I win today? How can I win more money, more material possessions? How can I win the approval of someone? How can I win society's power to be on my side on some social question? How can I protect myself by winning something today, which is total tension? To want to win will keep me in tension and in nervousness and in a state of despair. We are all through with that. We have been trying this all our lives, and now just look at yourself right now and see what it has gained you. You are what you are this morning because of what you have tried to do and be for all of your previous life. You have made yourself indeed what you are today. I have made myself what I am today. All because I had no idea of what reality is, of what life is really all about, all because I was afraid to go against the crowd, all because I had no idea that there is something totally different from this hellish question of how can I win today? And I have never succeeded, and you have never succeeded in winning. Because it is impossible, because it is a false question. The question is based on the false premise that there is an individual ego here which can and should win. I'm defeated right now when I ask unconsciously, how can I win? Now I want to tell you something. You have no idea as yet how you are asking this question. You don't see it, therefore you are thinking perhaps that this doesn't apply to you. This is why we're going into this question, this idea this morning, so we can begin to see where we're starting the day off wrong every morning. We don't see it. And I'm telling you that this is the way your day starts. But you don't see it as yet. We're trying to become conscious of it. So what are we going to do about it? Effective as of right now, I'm going to enter into, and you are going to enter into, a deliberate, conscious, planned program of asking myself every morning, how can I be defeated today? Get real excited and ask, in how many ways can I let the other person, can I let society win over me? So that I'm defeated to the point, and you understand, where there's nothing left to be defeated. There's no one there trying to win or trying to avoid defeat. I'll tell you a good place to start. I'll tell you two good places to start. One, in little thrills. You know what a little thrill is? You watch yourself in a little thrill. The nice letter, the nice compliment, the business deal that you concluded and you came out great on it. But another one, which I'm afraid I'm going to have to repeat many times, as I look at your faces, I see the necessity for it. I want you to be defeated from now on in the thrill you get of being defeated. You get such a great pleasure out of being depressed. You get a great pleasure out of being in despair over what you see in yourself. You get a great pleasure over feeling that you have been left out, that you have been cheated, that someone else always gets the breaks, that God hasn't lived up to his promises, what you call God, that life is cruel. You are getting a pleasure out of feeling that life is cruel, and you will stop it right now. And if you have a deep feeling that life is cruel, I would not want to live in the same house with you, because you would be a very, very cruel and unpleasant person to live with. Will you start this morning being defeated to the point where there's no defeat or win left? If you will find small places, you have to do this for yourself. If you'll find small places where you can let the opposition win. What's the opposition? The opposition is someone who makes a rude remark to you. Or you do not rise up in opposition to their opposition to you. And if you'll begin to find on your own small places to do this, you will eventually come to one of the most marvelous, hellish experiences you could ever pass through, which is the road to authentic and lasting liberation from yourself, which is the only liberation we need. If I can suffer in a new way, if I could suffer in a new way when something, quote, bad happens to me, this new way, you'll have to see it for yourself. We can do our best to explain it to you. If I could suffer in a new way when I'm all alone even, and I suddenly get depressed over whether I'll ever make it out or not, and I will say, I am sorry, sir, speaking to this depressed feeling, this feeling of anguish, I am sorry, Mr. Anguish, I am not going to accept you anymore. Because I'm beginning to see my error in loving my own anguish, loving my own hatred. That is my mistake in loving it, because that keeps it in place. If you have any negative emotion or attitude or action, it is because you love it, because you're afraid of death. The death of it, which you think is the death of you, which is not the death of you at all, because these negative feelings are not you at all. They are foreigners. They are betrayers who have captured you and told you that I am in charge of you, and you believe it, and you're a slave. Have I described you accurately? Yes. In this room, right here this morning, we are beginning a new and accurate and tremendous spiritual revolt against darkness in the right way. Not in the wrong way of wanting to become spiritual, more spiritual than you, or whatever it might be, but the destruction of all desire to be anything, to be anyone. When you enter your pain, your suffering, of which you are loaded, aren't you? You're loaded with it. Loaded with confusion. When you enter it in this new way, you will have your own inner testimony that you're doing something right. You will feel it. And you'll want to go faster and work harder. You'll want to read more and study more and work more on yourself, more intensely on yourself. Let's return to the original idea. Effective today, I'm going to find ways to be defeated. Talk about running in the opposite direction. Remember we had the illustration of a man running down the street just as fast as he can, and all of a sudden he says, I don't want to run in this direction anymore because I see the swamp and the dragons over there. I want to go in the other direction. What a shock. He wants to stop, but he can't do it. He's got such momentum going for him. It's a great shock because one part of him suddenly senses where he's heading toward his own destruction. One part of him senses and says, halt, but the body keeps going because of the build-up momentum. That's a shock, isn't it? This is what we're doing here. We're putting ourselves in deliberate shock, which comes all by itself, when I see what kind of a person I really am, what kind of a life I have lived, and I see that every time I call it a victory, I am deceiving myself, and I pay for it from 1 second to 20 years later. More I get nervous because I see you seeing through me. Give 3 cheers. This role you have been playing all your life, I have been playing all my life. Oh, I get nervous, I get scared, because you're going to see through me. And I'll lose material benefits as well. You might even leave me. What's happening to me? Maybe I'd better go back to church and prayer and get advice from people who know more than me. Don't do it. Your heightened feeling of anguish, of confusion, is the start of your deliverance from yourself, which is your own hell. Aren't you eager? Aren't you eager to be nervous in a new way because someone in this group sees through your phoniness? Or someone else sees through you? Aren't you excited? Don't you want to work harder to destroy the idea of you so that you can know who you are without thought? To know who you are with idea, with opinion, with label, with imagination, is tension, is nervousness, and loss. Now I'll tell you, it is quite possible for each of you in this room to know who you are without thinking about it. Without caring who you are. without making any effort to know who you are or to keep you in place. At which point you become, what's a word that says there's something there but other things can pass through it? Not invisible, that isn't quite right.
Transparent?
Huh?
Permeable?
Permeable? Permeable, if that's the right word. Which means that the expression of displeasure on the boss's face or your fellow worker's face doesn't hit you. Or the ambition that you've set up for yourself, whatever it is, financial, social, you're going to get a nice woman, you're going to get a nice man, and it doesn't work out, it flops. Nothing. And you will cease trying. Because you see the folly, among other things, of any other human being helping you to be in this state where you know who you are without thinking about it. Now think of all the things that we've covered in just this 20 minutes or so that you can take with you right out into the world. So that your life from now on is not the same as it always has been. You listen to what you're told here, and your life will not be in the future what it has been in the past. And what a terrible existence it has been, hasn't it? Hasn't it been awful? It's all right, no? Nothing. Leland read a verse yesterday from a book about the idea of time, and I will conclude with this, then we'll have open discussion for a little bit, then a break. At the present time, you are unable to realize that you can end your past with all its misery, with all its weights, with all its guilts and its shames. You can end it right now. If you will end yourself right now, in this room, right now. But I'm giving it to you as ideas, as principles, as thoughts. And when you've taken all these thoughts and understand what they mean and put them together, and then go into action upon your knowledge, so that you are willing to let go, to surrender yourself, then you will live what you know. You will be a totally, as we said last night, totally new kind of human being living here on earth, which will not be a religion to you or a philosophy, but a daily way of life. Because you have come to the point where you say, okay, there's only one thing left to do, to throw all my energies into discovering what this is all about, going right into it, being willing to listen, and especially being willing to let go of what I've called myself. Take a deep breath, ladies and gentlemen, and those of you listening to this tape, ladies and gentlemen, and start to let go right now by letting someone or something, even your own thoughts in one way, win over you, so that there's no one there who has any idea of winning or losing anymore. By consciously going through the hell of not wanting to win anymore, you will destroy both hell and heaven. Do you understand? By consciously going through hell, you will destroy both hell and heaven, after which there is this new state, which is not alternate between what you called heaven and hell. Heaven was when the man brought you a basket of flowers and a box of chocolates and which said, "I love you." That was your false heaven. And the hell was when he left you for another woman. Both are destroyed. You are a new human being, free of yourself and therefore free of the entire world. This is what we're working for, and this is what we're going to achieve. Yes?
I was talking to someone the other day, and we were talking about labeling. You know, I was talking about labeling.
Right.
And they said, if I call myself free, then I'm labeling myself.
Yes.
That is true.
Yes, sure. There's a quotation in that book. I think you read it out loud or something. None are more chained than those who believe they are free. Right? Why do you talk about being free? Why do you talk about God? Why do you talk about spiritual things at all? It's proper to talk about them as long as you don't identify with them and call yourself spiritual, call yourself free. Free man does not have to talk about it. He is it. Then he can talk about it. Yes.
You spoke about a buffer before. Is there anything else, any other way that I can help myself? I didn't realize that I was using buffer, but I was.
Okay, all right. The word annoyance. How much have you, not just you, but all of you, again, how much have you been annoyed in the last 24 hours? That annoyance is a buffer, a wall. And if you prefer your annoyance, which is an attempt, by the way, to win, what right do you have to take my parking space? Why don't you do things the way I want you to do them? If you sacrificed your annoyance, you'd be able to see something beyond the annoyance, which is the fact that you permit it to pass through you as a negative feeling because it gives you a false pleasure and the illusion of winning. Because you may be told to do something by someone else who's your superior in some way on the everyday level, the boss or whatever, but you can say, yeah, you can tell me to do this, but I can sure think things about you. This is your wall, this is your barrier to keep yourself in place. Yes?
Will you comment, please, on not trying to win over one's own thoughts?
All right, we set up a thought of what the world should be to us, of how another person should treat you, of what would be a very nice a nice little cozy situation. Boy, if I can just get the pension or the more money or have this person in my life or get this person out of my life, then I would be cozy. That is your idea of coziness. And as long as you have an idea of that, you will not be cozy when you get it. Because when the thrill wears off, you'll set up another idea of what is cozy for you. Why do you have any ideas at all as to what will make you happy? Why do you have any thoughts at all? Which does not mean you can't be practical on the everyday level. Yes?
I have pondered for a couple of weeks on your thought of, if I am not content without it, I will not be content with it.
Yes.
Now this it, I have put into many things to try to see whatever at the moment it might be to me. Will I be content without it as I am with it, or vice versa? And try to look deeply into that contentment or lack of.
All right, but don't practice mental gymnastics. Just look at it. I will repeat to some of you new people especially, because it's very important, and it's very important for you to remember this. Don't carelessly let your friends and relatives steal what small bit of gold you have gained here at these meetings. They can't really steal it unless you permit them to do so. unless you are asleep and they make so-called positive statements about religion or philosophy, and they impress you because of their manner of speaking, and then you begin to doubt what you heard here. You're beginning to put trust in them instead of in the truth. I wish I could tell you how easy it is for you to lose what you've gained here because you're still depending on someone else for strength. Now, I'll make a very simple, direct statement. Again, especially to those of you who are new for the first time, or those of you listening to this tape who have heard these things for the first time. Don't you dare listen to your friends or your relatives who, if you happen to discuss these ideas with them, they criticize them or try to lead you astray in any way. You're sacrificing yourself to illusion if you do this. And you're losing what you could have had. Because I know that this is going to happen, which is why it's far better not to discuss these ideas with someone else. It may come up accidentally. Then you might be able to handle it properly, or you may not. But keep these ideas to yourself for now. An idea can be well received, correctly received, without being understood. When an idea is given to you for the first time, how can you understand it? Your first lesson in playing the piano or repairing a television set, you didn't understand it. But your intention was to understand it because you wanted to. Now I'll give you an idea as a follow-up to what we talked about before, which I know you do not understand, or your life wouldn't be what it is now. However, you can receive it with the intention of seeing it deeply, and don't assume that you understand it, that you grasp it. But think about it, ponder it, reflect on these things. It is a simple idea, and one which you'll have an abundance of work material out in the world as you go through your day. Very simple, very important to you, because you don't see it yet, which is this. In this confused world, good often appears as the bad, and the bad appears as the good. But take the second one just for a minute. The bad appears to be good, because this is indeed a world where everyone you know, and I repeat, everyone you know is wearing a mask because he or she falsely believes that there is good in doing so. And as a consequence of this person, who you may call your good friend, is deceiving you. But you don't know it yet because you have not arrived at that certain necessary point in inner development, inner light, where you can really distinguish between good and bad, between right and wrong. What is bad? Bad is anything that prevents you from waking up from your present state of spiritual sleep. Therefore, good is anything that helps you to wake up. This is why it is a mere idea. It's a mere idea that it's good to come here, but it's a good idea. Tremendous idea. So do you see how you must not listen to anyone who tells you that they know the answers? You know those friends of yours who are so glib about advice in philosophy and in religion and how to achieve the good life? And they tell you, well, if we'd only pass this law, everything will be fine, or get rid of that law and everything will be fine. Or if we just learn to love each other. We've got to love each other more. That person is filled with hatred. People who preach love are filled with hatred. Now take that. Don't you notice it? Don't you see it in the small change of expression on their face when you say something that doesn't accord with what they want to believe? Or the sullenness, or the withdrawal, or the change in the tone of their voice? Don't you see it? You begin to see it. We had a whole lesson last night on becoming aware of other people, of watching them. Sorry, but you're going to have to lose all your gods, all your authorities, all your ideals, all your powerful people, all your knowledgeable people, all the people that you can look up to and say, they'll take the place of Mama and Papa who are no longer around. You think that's something. Wait till you hear what I'm going to tell you next. You're going to have to give up God. You're going to have to give up your idea of God. Which is phony, which is your idea. Therefore, it is all within your self-ego system, which is therefore a revolving thing from which nothing good can ever come. Which means you're going to have to be thrown entirely back on your own resources, which includes thought, but far more than that. Now what a happy thought we have. I can discover that when I cease to talk about God and to think about God, when I cease to pray to God, when I cease, I put an end to the illusion that God is outside of me. I'm talking about you as individuals. What Christ found and had, you can find and have. So by toppling all the idols, both exterior and interior, by giving up the false pleasure of being excited over a religious doctrine or a philosophy or a person, by ceasing to follow false prophets, whoever they may be, and having the courage to say, I'm going to rely only on myself, you will find that you yourself, now listen to this because it's very easy to go astray. You will eventually come to the point where you see that you yourself are God. You are the capital One. You are the All, capital A. And there is nothing outside of this. Until you have reached this point of realization, you will hate other human beings who worship a different God than you say you worship. You will hate other human beings who have different ideas of any kind than what you have. And in the name of God and love, you will destroy them. Because you have first destroyed yourself. What a shame. What a shame that the world is destroying itself. You are not going to put up with it anymore. You're not going to be a madman, a mad woman anymore. You're going to have the courage to go through the hell of fearing that God may send you to hell for deserting him. Right? This is all false. It's just nonsense. It's a trick. It's a trick that the devil in your own mind is playing on you. There is no God who's going to condemn you, going to send you to hell. Not at all. Get over that. Look, if you haven't gotten over it now, do it right now this morning, once and for all. There's no God who's going to send you to hell. And you had better have the courage to give up the false pleasure of thinking that there is. Because then there's you, let me reverse that. Because then there's God and you, the guilty sinner, and you're so proud that you're a guilty sinner. Give up your vanity over being a sinner. And then that kind of a God will disappear. And you will see what illusion you had been living in all these years. How you've been torturing yourself. But now you no longer love torture. You no longer love self-torture. There is a God. This God does not exist outside of this allness that we're talking about. You and I are one with this allness, and in that, listen to this, those of you listening to this tape, and in that there is sanity. A sanity which up to this point you don't know, but then you will be that sanity at last. Then you will not hate anyone, you will not trick anyone, you will not lie to anyone, you will not hurt anyone. You will be what you know. You will be what you know. First you know. You're getting knowledge. Then you will be what you know. And hell has gone forever. Because God, truth, does not live in hell. Do you want it? Do you want it? You're asked to sacrifice something. Isn't it? Is it the most startling thought we're coming to? Especially you new people. You are asked to sacrifice your misery. You're asked to sacrifice your sadness. You're asked to give up your tears. I wonder whether you will, or whether they're very precious to you. You're asked to sacrifice your self-condemnation, your self-hate. You're asked to give up the mechanical thought processes, which includes imagination, which tell you that you're either good or bad. If you could push a button here in this room, which will immediately take away all your miseries, I wonder how many of you would push the button. You would say you want to. You would tell me that you would love to. Oh, I could just find let's change that to a magic pill. If I had a box of magic pills here, and I invited you free magic pills that would take away all your misery by swallowing the pill, all of you would find an excuse. Oh, I have to go to lunch. And you would, out the door you would go. I know you would. It's a figure of speech, but it's quite accurate. Because you don't want to give up being miserable. That's all you've got. That's all I've got. Start giving it up. Little way. Comments, questions?
In the beginning, Howard, you mentioned concentration is great power, and then you moved into this idea of being defeated. How does that tie? How does that tie in?
The concentration and what was the other point?
Well, you started off with the idea that concentration is great power.
Yes, sure.
And then we seem to move just into this idea of self-defeat, of working on being self-defeat.
Okay, all right, very good. I get an idea, maybe a vague idea, a hinting at first, that something's wrong with my life. Now, I've always known this. Ever since I was a child, you and I have known that there's something wrong with our lives, right? With most people, it never goes beyond protecting this falseness. We know something is wrong. With most people, they they live and die with this vague idea that something is wrong. We come to this class and we read books and we work on ourselves in order to intensify the feeling that something is wrong, which is a very scary process, very scary. I begin to see then that something must be sacrificed. And the minute I catch the slightest glimpse that I'm going to have to give up me, I turn away. I run out the door. I don't even want to think about taking the pill. Can I put it this way? If I can see what my life is like with all its confusions and contradictions, and I can just live with it long enough to see that it is possible for me to be defeated in my love, my false love for the state of agitation. Can I give up the agitation? Can I be defeated by it? That is, give it up, not love it, not hang on to it because it gives me a sense of being alive? I'm afraid you have to do this for yourself. I can't explain it completely.
Copyright 1974. No portion of this material may be reproduced or sold without permission from Bruno Associates, Garden Grove, California.